Welcome back to another episode of What Should I Get Pierced? My name's Scott Wilkinson. I'm a professional body piercer and have been since 1994. Now on the show, we're going to take a look at 6 different people. We look at their faces, we look at their ears, I tell you what would be good possibilities for piercings, and ultimately what I think would look best on them. Now the first person we have to look at today is from the Czech Republic, so let's take a look at Veronica. Now, Veronica said she used to have more piercings, doesn't have as many now, so it's time to start redecorating. Now, first thing I'm going to say immediately is that tight septum ring. I could see a septum on there. Super pretty. It'd be a really, really nice piercing. I could also see some high nostril piercings. I've just been such a fan of the high nostrils, and of course, adding chains can completely bring it to the next level too. Now, as far as lip piercings go, I could totally see a vertical labret, but seeing that there's a little bit of shine here, there could be some lip gloss or lipstick, that's tough to heal things up with, so you'd have to avoid that during the healing process, but as you can see, a vertical labret would look amazing. Now, as far as more piercings, I could see a bridge piercing. It looks like there's the right anatomy for a bridge, but we would have to touch that and check to see if there's enough tissue. As far as other piercings, I love the higher cheekbones, which means we could do like a dermal anchor up on the side. I could also see a Monroe piercing. I could also see a Jestrum. And possibly a single nostril piercing. Healing that up and maybe a nice tight little ring around the side. Now, as far as my ultimate picks, I would have to go with the vertical labret, the eyebrow, and the nostril. Let's take a look at Veronica's ear. Now, immediately you can see that tight little, looks like a clicker around there with some nice gems going all the way across. Super, super pretty. I could definitely see more of those. So heal that up, maybe do another one below it, and like that, heal it up, and we'd be able to put more rings just like that. That triple ring around there would look really amazing. Now, as far as other piercings go, there's a lot of room up here to add forward helixes, possibly adding that triple forward helix. I could also see a Rook piercing, a nice prominent rook here, so adding the curved barbell there. I could also see a conch piercing. You can see the distance from here to here is not very far, so we could do a conch piercing and have it a nice tight ring around there once it heals up. You could also see a Tragus Piercing, possible anti-Tragus Piercing. There's always room for more lobe piercings. Lots of fun options here. Now, as far as my ultimate pick, no, we're going to back up 1 second. I saw one more possibility here. We could do a vertical industrial where it runs all the way down and through the bottom of the conch. So you can see like a little bead on the back side of the ear there. That would be really, really epic. Now, as far as my ultimate picks here, I would have to say the vertical industrial and a double helix. And up next, from California, we have Lily. So, looking at Lily, says she has some earlobe piercings, ready to get a little bit more brave and step up to the facial piercings. The first thing I see automatically is going to be the Ashley. The shape of your lips, I could totally see a nice big gem there, nice flat disc. It would just be beautiful. I'd love that. Now, as far as other options go, I could see a nostril piercing. I could also see eyebrow piercings. Definitely see an eyebrow piercing. I think that looks really, really nice. And of course, we could do angel bites. I could also see single lip piercing if we got the eyebrow on the other side to kind of balance things out. And my last option, I would say, would be maybe a dermal anchor on the side of the cheek up there. You see how her hair kind of parts off to the side, leaving that one a little bit more visible. It's a really cool look. Can't leave kind of a big scar, but it's still a really cool look. Now, as far as my ultimate picks, I am going to go with the Ashley and an eyebrow. Let's take a look at her ear. Now, looking at the ear, you can see that it is stretched, and a lot of times when I say when you're ready to go stretch to the next size, this is a great example. You see how there's that little gap on the top up there? that means it is ready to go to the next size, possibly even 2 here. Either she's trying to downsize or she just hasn't gone up to the next size, but there's room to go bigger right there. Now, as far as adding more piercings, I love that there's a little tiny bit of a notch in the side of the ear up there, so I think using that would be a lot of fun. What we could do is we could do a stud right there, which allows you to wear a ring when it's healed and almost get pulled into the ear where it looks extra tight, but it just fits in there like a glove. So that would be really, really fun piercing, is that single helix. Again, a rook piercing, a very prominent rook, which gives plenty of room for that piercing. As far as the little bit more extreme piercings, maybe a UFO. You can see how the rook is touching the forward helix here, which kind of creates that T, which means if we did a forward helix here and a rook, you could wear the ring through the forward helix to the rook and coming all the way around with captive bead ring, just like so. Kind of an epic look. Really rough to heal, but super, super cool. As far as other piercings, I could totally see a Tragus piercing and a conch piercing. Now, as far as my ultimate picks, I would want to do that helix up top and a rook piercing. And Gabe is the next person who we are looking at. Now, Gabe did mention that he works in a factory and some of the areas kind of dirty, so what would work best for him, especially with a situation like that? Now, the first thing I'm going to say is maybe oral piercings. Something like a tongue web piercing or a tongue piercing, because your mouth is generally closed, a little bit more protected, a little bit more likely to heal things up. Now, another possibility is if you work in a factory is to find the right time. If you have a week or 2 off work, sometimes that's the best time to get pierced, so you can heal up enough to where your body can create that protective barrier and heal it all the way from that point forward. Now, as far as other facial piercings, septum piercings work really well because you can kind of tuck that up and it's kind of protected and doesn't move around. With oral piercings like lip piercings are kind of tougher to heal because crusties, and you're going to pull the dirtiness from the factory on the inside. But if you had enough time, I could totally see a labret piercing on you. A labret piercing would look really, really fun. I could also see nostril piercings, possibly 2 on the one side. Again, if you have a little bit of time to heal it up, that does make it a little easier to heal this. And then the other possibility is if you work in a factory, something like this, you can always put little band-aids over the top as long as the sticky adhesive isn't sticking to the jewelry or getting pulled inside, because that can cause some issues. But if you can protect your piercing, that's always a big bonus. I could also see eyebrow piercings on you, possibly 1 on that side, possibly 2 on this side with the double nostril piercing as well. I could also see a bridge piercing. Bridge piercings are generally longer term healing, so it's a little tougher to heal up, but as you can see, the bridge would look amazing on you. Now, as far as my ultimate picks, I would have to go with the double nostril and the double eyebrow. Now, let's take a look at Gabe's ear. Now, when we look at his ear, first thing I'm seeing is the anti-helix area, which is this area right here. It does stand out, which means it's going to be real tough to heal any sort of industrial if we wanted to go with something like that. So what I would do is utilize that center part and maybe just pierce that anti-helix right in that center there. You do a large gem, a large shape, super, super cool piercing. Now, another possibility is to do a helix piercing where it has the disc on the backside and just the gem on the front. This is a fun piercing. And also when it heals up, you can wear a ring, nice and snug, so it just kind of hugs the ear around there. As far as other piercings, definitely a good candidate for the tragus, and also an excellent candidate for a doth piercing. I could also see the helix piercings all the way up the ear, possibly even adding a couple of the lobe piercings down at the bottom. So a lot of fun options. As far as my ultimate picks, I would have to go with the flat, the upper fold of the helix, and the tragus. And all the way from Germany, up next we have Rosalie. Now, looking at Rosalie, she was wondering about some new possible piercings. I would immediately start with the septum piercing. You see how the septum's nice and tight, so a nice small ring in there, adorable. Now, as far as other nose piercings, I could see nostril piercings as well, possibly one on each side or even the two on the one side. As far as lip piercings, a ton of fun options here. We could do either like the Medusa, the Jestrum, or we could do a vertical labret, also very, very nice. I see everything more centered here though. So yeah, one of those would be amazing for lip piercings. Possibly high nostrils. Now, my only really concern here is the glasses if they drop down and got in the way, but I could definitely see some high nostrils there as well. Possibly horizontal eyebrow piercings. You see how the glasses are a little lower, leaving plenty of room up here, so maybe horizontal eyebrows, one on each side. Now, as far as my ultimate picks, I would have to go with vertical labret and horizontal eyebrows. Let's take a look at Rosalie's here. Now, with this, you can see that there's a nice large flat area, undecorated. I think we should start decorating. Now, with this, we could possibly do an industrial where we have the bar going across the ear. We could also do some sort of a angled custom industrial for this, kind of like the bar going in and connecting, kind of creating a V like that. We almost even have enough room to do a double industrial with the bar and the bars going across like so. Not everyone has this. I'm not sure if there's enough ridge here to really support it, but if you did, that would be really, really cool. Now, as far as other piercings go, if we weren't doing the industrial, maybe sticking to a simple flat piercing in the middle there. Or we could do helix piercings. You can see there's a nice ridge all the way down, the single helix piercing right here. If we can find the right spacing to kind of add and continue all the way up the ear. I've always been a fan of that. It's a large project, but they look so nice when placed properly. As far as last couple picks here, I would say we could do a Tragus piercing. We could do the Doth piercing. Definitely a good candidate for the Rook piercing. Good candidate for the conch piercing. A lot of fun options. Now, as far as my ultimate picks, I would have to go with an industrial, a tragus, and the conch. Now, before we move on, hit that like for me. I'd really appreciate it. Now, Savannah's the next person we have to look at, so let's take a look at Savannah. Now, Savannah, no visible piercings. First thing I'm drawn to is her eyes. So I would want to do some sort of piercing around there to draw that attention to that area. Now, something like that we could possibly do in a dermal anchor right up like so, or possibly even a surface bar, which is the anti-eyebrow piercing right across there. Tough to heal up, but they're really, really beautiful. Now, another possibility would be an eyebrow piercing. Bring it in just a little bit more than normal, just like that, kind of pointing in towards the corner of the eye. I could also see a nostril piercing. Doing a single nostril piercing on that side, healing it up, adding the ring. I love the ring in the nostril. I could also see Medusa piercing. Could also see a labret piercing. Possibly a vertical labret as well. Yeah, so that would be really, really nice. Maybe we could add some dahlia piercings. You can see how you add that in the corner. Adds a little bit of brightness to everyone's day. And as far as my ultimate picks, I do like those dahlia piercings as well as the anti-eyebrow. Now let's take a look at Savannah's ear. Now we see a double lobe piercing with the ring in the second one. I can totally see that ring in the first one as well, just kind of adding a little bit more. We could also do a rook piercing. Everyone today seems to have a nice good fold in that rook, so it's just screaming to be pierced to me. I could also see forward helix piercing. I could also see a tragus piercing. And 100% I could see a conch piercing. And once with that conch piercing, heal it up with either like a stud, or we can do the full cluster, and then maybe even go to the ring once it's healed up. Now, as far as my ultimate picks, I would have to go with the rook piercing, the conch piercing, and the tragus. And the last person we have today is Emma. So let's take a look at Emma. She doesn't have a lot of piercings currently, but wants to start adding some more. Now, she did mention she was interested in getting a septum piercing. I would have to agree with you. I think a septum piercing would be super, super beautiful. And as far as other piercings, I could definitely see some snake bites, a couple lip piercings on the side like that. I could also see a jestrum. I could also see maybe nostrils. I do like your nose for a piercing, but as you can see, the glasses might rub down against it, which could cause problems. So if the glasses don't fall down on that right area, I think nostrils would be really, really cute as well. Now, as far as eyebrow piercings, you can see how the eyebrows are still above the glasses, so we could get away with an eyebrow piercing and still show it off. And Medusa. I could see a Medusa because we'd have a nice tight ring up there in the septum, the Medusa below, kind of right in the center of the face. I love centrally placed piercings. Now, as far as my ultimate picks, I would probably go with the septum and the Medusa. Let's take a look at her ear. Now, she did mention with her ear that the placement seemed a little too close together. Now, you can either take that out and spread things out a little bit more, but you're always going to see that scar. The first thing I notice is that that second piercing here is a little bit higher up, which means it is laid out well for a stacked piercing. If we did another piercing right below it, and then continued with another ring up above like that, it works really well, where you have the single, the double up and down, and then the single again. As far as other piercings go, I could totally see the Rook piercing again. Everyone's built for a Rook today. Amazing. I could also see an upper orbital, which means do a vertical piercing from there to there, so you have a ring on the bottom, and the ring will come around on the top, just like so. It's a vertical piercing. You can sleep on these fairly good. It's still a long heel, but it does make it a lot easier to get healed up. As far as Helix piercings, there's plenty of room to do the Helix piercings down the ear there. But I could also see a conch piercing. See a conch piercing, maybe a tragus piercing, anti-tragus piercing. We got a lot of fun options here. And as far as my ultimate picks, I would have to go with the orbital up across the top, the stacked lobe, as well as an additional earlobe piercing. So that winds it all up for today. If you enjoyed my video, do us a favor, hit that subscribe, hit the like, and of course, keep putting holes in your body. We'll see you all in the next video.